Welcome to Future Forecasting Group's hits for June of 2024.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another round with the Future Forecasting Group. I'm your host, Sean, and I'm joined by our awesome team of remote viewers. We've got Derek, Nyiam, Edward, Daz, and Dick. We're going to be going through our June hits for world events here. So I'm going to go ahead and get us into the slideshow. 1 second here.
Is this June events or July? Or we're waiting, giving it a month to cure, huh?
Yeah, we started giving it another month because, as you know, with remote viewing, the dates are a little bit squishy. And so by waiting a month, we make sure that we give plenty of time for the events to transpire, and we seem to be getting better fitting stories. So for June, we had a lot of stuff come through. So these were the themes where the team had corroboration. And I left Bitcoin predictions unchecked because it seemed like we had more of a down month than what the remote viewer saw, but there was still some correlation. But again, I just want to frame this for everybody that just because I have a green checkbox here, it's essentially saying I found news that matches with what the viewers got to some degree of accuracy. But it's really up to you guys to make your own minds up. But this is what I found when I did my digging into the news here. So, I need to update this one because we did find some bird-like drones that matched with Derek's story. So let's see, we're going to get into it here. Explosions. So both Daz and Derek had explosions, as you can see here. And there was a gas line cut 7 minutes before a deadly explosion in Youngstown, Ohio. So it really matches here with what Derek has drawn here. And there was unfortunately some death involved. Deal reached. This seemed to be pertaining with the Gaza ceasefire. And as you know, these things take time, but there is a lot of progress being made towards the Gaza ceasefire when I did this just 2 days ago. So here's the news from the United Nations. Gaza Security Council adopts a U.S. resolution calling for the immediate and full complete ceasefire. So this is being worked and there are deals being made. This one was really interesting. So we had some, especially with Daz and Edward both having these storms here. June's a little early for hurricane season. And as you all saw in the news, we had some records being set with, what was the name? Beryl. So it set 3 records that I saw. The first Category 4 hurricane in June ever recorded, and the earliest Category 4 hurricane ever recorded. It strengthened into the earliest Category 5 hurricane on record, all while being out in the Atlantic, and it produced the most tornado warnings in a single July day. And that's, again, here, kind of with these cyclones that Daz drew here, and then the hurricanes that Edward drew. We got the mushroom cloud event. Got some mushroom clouds here that came up from both Derek and Nyiam. And Russia had this Ukraine frontline town being hit faster with hacked bombs and expanded their base network type stuff. So all kinds of stuff with the Russia and Ukraine war that really matched this. We also had this power grid failure or power line sketches that both Edward and Derek were drawing. Interestingly, I don't know and this happened a little later than June, but it was a huge news story with the power outage in Paris with the Olympics. And that was the biggest story that I found, and it really seemed to match with what the guys drew here. So gunman and active shooter event, both Derek and Nyiam had this data. And this was chaos at the Copa America show. Shows the U.S. is not ready for the World Cup. So you had the stadium here. Wait a minute, am I doing the... There, yeah, I think there were guns drawn. I'm trying to remember now, going back 2 days when I did this. But this was just an insane thing. You had all kinds of mobs and fights and people climbing in through air ducts. It was kind of mayhem. But there was also this gunman active shooter event. That's right. I broke this up. Oops. So the gunman active shooter event that matched with what Edward drew here. sorry, Derek. I spent all day at a conference, guys, so I'm going to apologize that I'm going to be like tripping over my words. My battery is depleted because I spent all day on my feet talking to people.
That's cool.
Yeah. Anyway, so 4 people were shot downtown Atlanta at a food court. Derek had the gunman going into the restaurant there. So this really matched with what his story was. Earthquake, both Nyiam and Dick. Nyiam and Derek. Dick, my God, I am so sorry, guys. Nyiam and Dick both got earthquake, and we had a huge 7.2 magnitude earthquake that hit southern Peru. Thank good there was no risk of tsunami with this one, but pretty crazy. Lots of protester stuff. We have Dick and Nyiam. Take note of the people up against the fence that Dick drew, and take note of the people with the flag that Nyiam drew here, because we had all kinds of stories with people going up against the fence at the White House, the Capitol, with the pro-Palestinian protesting, and there were tons of people holding up the flags. So both of those sketches really matched this event really well. The wave event, this one was really interesting. Both Dick and Nyiam were getting these waves. Notice how Dick said it's, these waves are propagating out. And Nyiam had it impacting with like clouds and dust. So interestingly, there was a huge solar flare blast that came out. It was one of the strongest radiation storms since 2017. And look at this, big in the news, NASA was watching Mars light up during the epic solar storm. And they actually had a GIF that I wish I could have captured for this brief, but it was showing the dust kicking up on the surface of Mars for the storm that with the atmosphere interaction that was going on. Really interesting that both viewers picked up on that, and that seemed to match. We had a structure collapse type of event. Derek had something with a beach type area with victims on a hot summer day. And Nyiam's got like this, it looks like a castle type thing. But so check this out. There was a huge story about a Surfside condo collapse that reshaped the Florida. And this was 3 years ago, but it's in the news back in June. But also in June, 5 were dead from a missile fragment scatter over the beachgoers in a Russia-occupied Crimea. So there were actual beachgoers that were killed by missile fragments. So I grabbed both of these because it seemed to kind of match. But again, you guys make up your own mind, our valued subscribers. Bridge damage incident. We've got what looks like, a train or a railroad bridge, and then this other thing kind of hanging off that Edward drew here. And so there was a bridge that collapsed, a rail bridge, because of flooding. So again, very interesting. That's not something that happens every month. Definitely not something that happens every month. Bitcoin predictions, both Daz and Dick kind of had this turbulent activity here. And I didn't see just a simple graph that just showed June. Maybe I can get with Dick and you can show me how to grab like specific month. But you can see June here was overall down, but it did have these turbulent bumps like the viewer sketch. So you guys can make your own minds up. And then here was Nyiam's chart that he had. All right. Individual stories that you guys had that were not corroborated. Major car crash Daz got. 2 dead, 1 injured in a high-speed car crash that ended at LAX. And it seemed to kind of match with this whole, it wasn't quite as big a news as the Diana crash, but a lot of parallels seemed to match when I read the story. The financial news. There was a New York Stock Exchange glitch that sparked volatility in dozens of stocks in June. And so I wanted to put that one up there for folks to consider with Daz's remote viewing here. So this one's kind of sad here. Blast kills or hit, I'm not going to try and pronounce it. It's in Crimea. 7 dead across Ukraine and Russia. But yeah, lots of talks of retaliation and, U.S. being possibly be involved in that, and Putin involved in vowing that there will be retribution type of a thing. So this seems to fit with what we had going on there. Here's a good story to counterbalance that. Little girl saved. It's a miracle. Dad saves, his quick action saved and revived his 2-year-old who was found lifeless in a family pool. I know you had the rubble here, but everything else matched here, Daz. And you even said miracle. So, here it is, miracle. So I thought that was a really cool story to read. Thank you, by the way, Daz, for giving me some good news to read. Bird-like drones. Derek had bird-like drones in the news, and there was a call for, this was up in the news and social media about a funding, like a crowdsource funding type thing that's going on for these drones that flap their wings like birds. And so I thought that was really interesting. It's a kind of a unique thing to see. I'll let you guys make your minds up on this. I didn't find Caitlyn Jenner out there in the dress, but we had the huge controversy over the Olympic opening ceremonies. And so here we have drag queens shine at the Olympics opening, but the Last Supper thing was drawing a lot of criticism. And so I know it's not Caitlyn Jenner, but everything else matched from what Derek was saying here. So make your own minds up, but I could see that being a good metaphor. Really unique one. Counterfeit shoes, specifically Nike. And here we have Nike suing over 100 fake sneaker sellers. So, yeah, really nice job there, Derek. A mine landslide. Up in Canada, we did have a landslide at a mine. Victoria Gold confirms heap leach pad failure and damage to mine infrastructure. And this was from June 24th, 2024. The sketch bears a remarkable resemblance to the area in the photos that I was looking at in the stories. Prominent bald man death. So Willie Mays passed away. He was balding. He did wear glasses in a lot of the photos I saw of him in his older age. So I thought this was a really nice match for what Dick had sketched here. So nice work there, Dick. And we had the loss of a legend, unfortunately. Prisoner exchange. Yes, we did have a prisoner exchange. It was only the fifth one. For how long this thing's been going on, I think that was a good call, seeing that in the viewing there, Dick. So this one I didn't count as a hit, but I wanted to throw this story up because it kind of results in a similar thing. We had the Trump case completely dismissed after the corrupt trial. So it wasn't a hung jury, but we still had a similar outcome. And so, yeah. China blockade. There was not a China blockade, but because China started conducting drills where they were encircling Taiwan, the news was all abuzz with what do we do to respond to a China blockade. So there were multiple stories on this. So technically this was in the news as Dick called for, just it didn't happen. They're talking about what if it does happen, because it was drills, not the real thing. Migrants filling a long corridor. There was a couple news stories out with airports across the United States housing migrants. This one's in Boston. There were similar stories about Chicago. I think I remember seeing LA, but they're using the space in terminals that are shut down in airports to house migrants right now, which is crazy. But that would fit with what I saw. This is just one of the stories I found. Plane falling. We had Ukraine destroying a Russian Su-25 jet, and yeah, it totally does. And Dick says this is a pretext to war. Yeah, they're at war already, but it's escalating, and this is possibly a pretext to that escalation. So I wanted to throw that story up for folks to consider. Female boxing story. Edward had this, possibly a trans athlete, and here we go with a trans boxer aiming for a gold medal. This was from June 17th. So yeah, nice work, Edward. Guy falling off a ladder. There was a story from a Massachusetts man who was critically injured. There were actually multiple stories about this poor guy, falling off his ladder and making the news because he's in bad shape. I also want to point out that also big in the news about a ladder was the guy that climbed up on the roof for the Trump assassination attempt. And they're like, dude, there's a ladder here. How does a guy get a ladder in with all the security? And so I didn't see anybody falling off the ladder though. So this one was a better fit, but that's also a big ladder news story from very recently. It was in July, but still within the time frame that the viewing can capture. New syndrome story. Yes, they are saying that there's this a neurodevelopmental syndrome, and they're using genetic tools to help researchers ID this new syndrome. So nice work, Edward. Racial violence event. We have all of a sudden I was being hit. This was at a Columbia University where police were going into a protest. They're not really playing up the race card, but it kind of is. I wanted to capture this story just for folks to consider, but they are, constantly in this news battle with the narrative of police and brutality and their motives type stuff. So this was the only one that I really couldn't find a good story that corroborates, but keep your eyes out. There is a place in Mexico with Camelot as the name, but I didn't really see anything environmentally in the news this month or last that tied to it. But with the kind of stuff that Edward gets, I'd be keeping my eyes open here in the next month or two to see what happens.
A bunch of headlines a few days ago with a play on Kamala Harris, and they called it Camelot.
Oh,
So it's the return to Camelot, but it's spelled with a K. And
okay.
We can look that up and find that. That was,
Yeah.
Everybody
Thanks,
else
Dave.
see that? Did you see that, Edward?
So we've got large fields ablaze, with Edward, having these fields ablaze. Well, there were record-breaking fires consuming Brazil's Pantanal wetlands, which is interesting. So I love this one. Lost dog returns home. Edward says 1 to 2 years. This dog was gone 2 years, and he nailed it. How cool is that? So it's good to see these good news stories.
A happy one.
Yeah, exactly. Burger business in trouble. Yes, a major fast food restaurant operator. And this is a franchise for Burger King, I believe. Not an actual Burger King, but there's a lot of franchises going out. And this was another one from June 27th, filing Chapter 11. And they were talking in the stories about how franchises used to be deadlock, just an easy way to make the money because you already have a big company paying for all the advertising and the marketing and all that stuff. All you got to do is just be open.
Well, inflation, inflation's gone up so much. It's like as expensive as eating in a sit-down restaurant for much poor quality food.
Yep.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're right, Derek. Thank you. You did pretty good here. The only one that looks like it was a little bit off is this one was tied. And maybe I don't follow the whole World Cup stuff. But
it's interesting. That's the only one I question marked too.
Yeah, and you did, and they were tied, so it was really close. But everything else you nailed, and I think you even had somebody write in and say, "Thanks, I made a couple $1,000 because I bet on these."
A dude actually won money, and he sent me money through PayPal. Yeah. I was like, "What the hell?" He's like, "Yeah, I bet out all three. I made all this money. I gotta give you some." I was like, "I don't know if I should take it."
That's awesome. DC lockdown from Nyiam. Yes, Washington bracing for a summer of heightened security, and they put fencing up around all the big buildings, the White House, the Capitol building. So yeah, you saw it, and they did it. The Kamala controversy. There is all kinds of stuff about Kamala coming out now with the spotlight on her, with Biden dropping out, and there's all kinds of people questioning. So yes, in X is filled with people doing research and putting stuff up. And so, yeah, I just grabbed this headline from Politico to kind of highlight, new poll goes deep into Kamala Harris's liabilities and strengths as a potential president. So nice work there, Nyiam. Urban sinkhole. This thankfully wasn't in a crowded street like Nyiam drew it, but it is in an urban area, and it swallowed up almost an entire soccer field. It's crazy. There was a video on one of the pages that just showed it because there was a camera on it. And it's crazy to just see the whole field cave in on itself. Military ship encounter. U.S. blasts aggressive China over South China Sea collision with a Philippine ship. So, yeah, good work here, Nyiam. Warfare deaths. Russia promising retaliation against the U.S. for the Ukraine strike on Crimea. I'd say that was a definite match.
Yeah, Edward said the word Camelot. And this came out in New York Magazine.
Wow.
She's sitting on a coconut.
No, that's Willie Brown's left testicle.
Oh,
Keep your eye out for August world events, which are coming up, and we'll talk to you soon.